That momentary lapse was all it took. Of all the things that could have happened, my knees buckled underneath me and I crumbled towards the ground. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my bat as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Rena was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Rena was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating.
Are you afraid of something, I wonder? It's not like you to tremble, Keiichi-kun.
Her expression looked almost affectionate. Those soulless eyes, that mask of affection. As she admonished me for trembling, Rena's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel as if I was staring at the godliness of the thousand-armed Buddha. Then as both of her hands met above her head, the hatchet that she held came into focus. I stared up at it in disbelief. It was all I could do. Tell me, what happened to Satoshi? Rena stayed like that, with that hatchet raised above her head, and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was expressing a farewell to a friend she was never to see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions.
I told you. Satoshi-kun transferred out.
Enough of that transfer crap! It means demoned away, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You might want to calm down, Keiichi. You just might want to not say anything right now. You can tell me now, can't you? Who made Satoshi disappear? Was it you? Mion? Or someone in the village? Answer me! I became frantic the more I screamed, but Rena did nothing to maintain the smile frozen on her face.
I have no idea what Keiichi-kun is talking about.
Then I'll say it in a way so you do. Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths?
You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun.
What?
There is no human perpetrator. Everything is by Oyashiro-sama's will.
Isn't Oyashiro-sama's curse a superstition? You believe in that too?
It's not about believing or not. Oyashiro-sama exists. Period.
Oh, pure red, okay. Rena's gaze grew even more... Did that word show up earlier too? Jalid. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything. There's just no way that something like Oyashiro-sama could exist.
You don't believe in Oyashiro-sama?
There's no way I could believe it. There's no way it could exist.
It exists. Oyashiro-sama exists. Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally.
I never felt something like that.
Keiichi-kun, haven't you felt someone apologizing to you before? Constantly, on top of that?
All noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Rena's voice resounded, loudly and terribly.
You see, until you forgive them, they'll always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside.
I couldn't understand what Rena was saying.
It came to me, too. Oyashiro-sama did. That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa.
I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Rena saying?
Hasn't Oyashiro-sama come to you as well, Keiichi-kun? I'm probably the only one who you can confide in. I won't let you transfer out, okay?
I'm assuming that's her line. Rena's demented laughter clanged around inside my head. Was Rena saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard about that when I asked about Rena. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Oishi-san began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter. So all of these details are just what I heard from those involved, meaning it's not that credible. You said there were victims? Didn't Rena just break all the windows? No, Rena Ryugu had attacked 3 boys. using a metal bat. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. There was no report to the police, so... They were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there would be a criminal investigation, but why didn't they press charges? I tried asking the 3 male victims for their side of the story, but they all were reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid, even after she had transferred schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it starting from the beginning? Rena hit people while she broke the windows? Or was it she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Rena Ryugu was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Rena Ryugu, and it seems they were a group of friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the 4 of them were together. So what happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool storage shed and beat the 3 of them down one after the other. What? There were no witnesses. This was an account pieced together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day after school, Rena and 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help. Rather, they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At that time, Rena underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the 3 of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other. Leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their heads, she made her way towards the school building. Then she broke the glass windows one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on the scene and subdued her. What was this change Rena underwent? What matches up into statements from the 3 was a sudden change. The point that there was a transformation. Transformation? I also could recall Rena's transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Rena that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Rena. That transformation they're talking about, had it happened before? No, there was nothing like that. As far as I could find out, in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often? Where people change suddenly like Rena did? Of course it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then you're saying there was a dormant element in Rena that caused that transformation? I cannot say that for certain. But according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side to her. Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat. Who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I, myself, sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that was Rena, even now. Then, what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the school, so the 3 of them were carried in and treated quickly. What about Rena? What about the police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they are called. Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage, why didn't they file charges? That's what caught my attention as well. Either some threat or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted to. We're talking about you after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah, but I told you at the beginning, didn't I? That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather, they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk. Didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here in Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did the teacher at that school tell you anything? A school is hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep scandals under wraps. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly, you see. Then, there was no comment from the school? No. They denied the incident even happened. It's just, 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records.
The victims didn't speak. The school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all!
Yeah, I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wish this incident to be kept from the public, so if you and I both forget about it, Maebara-san, then this incident will probably just fade away.
For a brief period, we sat in silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with.
After that, she was suspended by the school, and during that time, she underwent psychiatric counseling.
Did you hear anything from that doctor?
Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics, or at least very tight-lipped.
Nothing even after you showed them your badge?
I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legally binding authority, after all.
Then how did you know that Rena confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it?
There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing her my badge.
Then what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all that she remembered was what she overheard from inside the room.
The nurse said that at the time, Rena Ryugu was very calm and mild-mannered.
It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than a counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some of it, but partway through, her mother was asked to leave, so it became a private counseling session between just a doctor and Rena for a while. The part with Oyashiro-sama? When did that pop up?
Partway through. She screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in.
Okay. How do I do your voice again? My brain's forgetting.
It was Oyashiro-sama!
Rena suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before that, so I had no idea what the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor, calmly and collectedly, asked Rena to have a seat. What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. A fundamental part of counseling is to be a good, patient listener.
Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama! And it's finally gotten to me!
That's the town you lived in before you moved here. Isn't that right, Ryugu-san?
I didn't want to move, but because of my mom and dad's circumstances, we had to. But Oyashiro-sama wouldn't allow it.
Ryugu-san must have lots of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now you must be missing them dearly, don't you think?
I want to go back. Back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner. But now it's too late. Oyashiro-sama has come.
Oyashiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa. Isn't that right?
Everyone knows. It's Hinamizawa's guardian deity. And if you ever try abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving, you'll incur its wrath.
You had moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then it was just now that this god has arrived, is what you're saying?
You may not believe me, but Oyashiro-sama exists.
That nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered. That it was Oyashiro-sama's doing, right?
I do believe there is that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa. That if you leave the village, then you incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Maebara-san.
I knew very well what those scorned by the village incurred. To hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. Then the following year, Satogo's parents, supporters, and leading advocates for the dam were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I've heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. Oh. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside threats being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who leave? Normally, people who leave villages aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule that the people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? Oishi-san pondered for a bit over on the other end of the receiver, then began speaking again.
Well, I told you of long ago when Hinamizawa was called Onigafuchi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of ogres. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worshipped the ogres, so Onikakushi was hallowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, you were cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onikakushi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that. But for leaving to also be no good, that's... Also, the ogres, you see. They were being strictly watched by Oyashiro-sama so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Oyashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onikakushi and the rest of the world. I see. I finally understood what sort of thing Oyashiro-sama was. So basically, Oyashiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess? Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I don't know very much myself. This is mostly what's passed on to me from my mother. I could understand it a bit better if it was like that. Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So, because Rena originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means, because Rena moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards they didn't move back to Hinamizawa after all. Those who abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then, why only Rena? Shouldn't Rena's parents also have been guilty of the same transgression by moving away and have been cursed? Also, in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, then it'd be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of a deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and one disappearing on the day of the Watanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, I'm moving my pop filter. There's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't explain Rena beating her classmates with a metal bat or why the victims wouldn't press charges. You don't think the victims were cowering because they believed that a terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Of course I didn't want to believe it. But more importantly, I had just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Rena made between Oyashiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Rena as well. She was affected by Oyashiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon which she had used at the time of that horrendous act was, again, a metal bat. And finally, me. I'd encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same thing happened to Rena? But there was one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Rena was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally, me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Rena, Satoshi, and finally, me. Could it be that I was really under Oyashiro-sama's curse right now? No, more importantly than that, what should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Rena was fine. Fine? Rena had undergone a change. I can only believe that there was something that wasn't Rena residing within her. And here, right now, it was standing before me. Hello. Rena, please tell me. What will happen to me? Rena stood imposingly, not answering. Satoshi disappeared, but Rena didn't disappear. So, what will happen to me? I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling.
Don't worry. I'll save you.
Rena took one step forward, still holding the hatchet high above her head.
Now then.
One step closer, Rena's face spread out to fill my vision.
Speak.
One step closer. Rena's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer.
There's something you want to say, isn't there? I'll listen. I'll save you, okay? Speak, okay? Speak, okay?
I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away from Rena. That's too many laughs for me to do in one breath, sorry. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end. Because when that laughing ended, the moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang to my feet so fast, even I couldn't believe it, and pushed Rena away with both hands. Rena was as light as a feather. Thrown about by the unbalanced weight of the hatchet, she was sent backwards as if she had been carried off by the wind. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. It was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from Rena. Run away. Survive! I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding onto a bat the entire time. Such a worthless weapon. Couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. So what, you were gonna hit her? Bruh, don't hit women. I sped even farther down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of that simulacrum? I don't know. Of Rena coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head, and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment, I was bewildered by the scenery I felt I knew but couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized it was the dam site. The fact that I dashed madly and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a single soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. Elbow pop. Why won't my elbow pop? Ah, whatever. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then I might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Rena wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Rena, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, two adults wandering around without a purpose, it was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, those eyes. Okay. They weren't chit-chatting while talking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them. I'd lose them easily by running. If they were part of the group after me, then they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Rena would catch up with me. That's right, I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed towards me as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Probably because you're a suspicious dude with a bat, but alright. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped to the conclusion that Rena was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need fear anything else. But right now, I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening, being unable to shake Rena off as she slowly closed in on me, but this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, the straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in that frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it would take to blink twice, when this frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. On top of me, and then... Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Nice rhyme. Go with the right leg or go with the left. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right. Left! I swung the bat in a wide arc with my right arm. Using that inertia, I stopped and suddenly spun. Whoa! The two of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms ready to grab me instead grasped at empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been and faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. Oh, okay, then what? This made me certain they weren't just two people out for a walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Rena. Squeaks again. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wryly on the inside. What do you want with me? Next one is going to be right in your face, you bastard! It's fine if it was just a bluff. By barking out at them, I was able to fire myself up. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me with unbelievably calm expressions on their faces. One of them would grab onto my bat and the other would hold me down. Was that their plan? Taking on both of them at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured from every pore in my body. Then I'd just have to settle it with the first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down. Narrowing my target down to the man on the right who had already been knocked down before, I stepped in and swung with all my might. There was no way for an unarmed person to guard against it. It would cause immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap like a twig. If they turned their back to it, then it was possible that the blow would travel all the way to their vital organs. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed farther through the kill zone between us and delivered a fist right into my gut. Not good. With this distance, in this position, and in this state, there was no way for me to dodge it. Ah, death! The world flipped upside down. I understood that I was being tossed around like a rag doll. I landed on the soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil press against my face. It didn't hurt at all. Okay, dude. But the moment I thought that, I suddenly felt pain coming from the abrasions on my skin, as well as the contents of my stomach being forced upwards, flooding my mouth with a bitter sensation. I knew very well that I didn't have the time to relish this experience. I stood up as quickly as I could, but at that moment, the other man was already barreling towards me. Being able to comprehend calmly that I simply couldn't dodge it made it all the more upsetting. After plowing into my stomach full force once again, my assailant twisted around behind me and locked his thick arm around my neck. My throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled, or that I was about to go unconscious. My vision simply darkened and a silent whining noise began playing deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was more than likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake this arm off me, I couldn't run. I couldn't fight back. I don't remember the scene, I'm being honest. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up with the phrase that adequately described my situation. At this point, I'm starting to think that I should probably split the episode. Like, Jesus Christ. Because this is getting long. This is like at 2 hours already, and I'd imagine there's still at least another 30 to 40. So, yeah. Alright guys, I took a second break. I turned up the BGM a bit because it was still really, really quiet. And by a bit, I mean quite a fucking substantial amount. So,
yeah, hopefully this is much better. Granted, this is probably one of the quieter songs, so I might want to actually turn it down a little bit more. And the sound effects are really loud too. So this, I actually turned it up in my volume mixer, so hopefully it should be a lot better. So, yeah, it's been 2 days since I recorded the last part of this video because it was getting really hot in my room and I could not record for the rest of the day because it was not very comfortable. How's that for fucking October? It was the 1st of October. But we're gonna go into spoiler time for a little bit. I realize we're probably, like, literally in the last act of the arc, because I'm pretty sure I know what's gonna happen, like, right now. But either way, we're going into spoiler time to discuss the anime, because I've seen the first episode. So, yeah, remember, when I pulled this up, that means spoiler time's over. So, spoiler time starting right now. So, about Rika, I'm actually kind of surprised that they foreshadowed her basically, like, that much. Holy shit. Like, I picked up on a little bit of potential foreshadowing throughout the episode, and then, like, at the very end, they just show her overlooking Rena and Keiichi with red eyes, so that's something, ain't it? Part of me really hopes, though, that they do not foreshadow that ever again. Like, they never show Rika with red eyes ever again until whatever arc reveals that she's in a time loop. I really hope that they just don't do that again. I think that would be fucking cool if they just don't. Because I don't think it should be too obvious. Putting a little bit on the plate right at the beginning, being like, what the fuck is going on with Rika here? And then just not developing that at all until the reveal. I don't know, it could work, it could also not work, but I was surprised that they did that. Like, they foreshadowed it quite a bit. Like, there was one line that Mion said that I really appreciated. She said to Rika something along the lines of, yada yada for old men like us, and this is like, because Rika's probably at this point, technically speaking, older than all of you. So, that's something, ain't it? I don't know exactly how long she was trapped in the time loop. Probably at least like 20 years, right? Something crazy like that. Maybe it was only 5 or 6, but still, spiritually, she's way older than Keiichi, Rena, Mion, Shion, and Satoko, so yeah. But I really fucking liked, like, how they foreshadowed that. Like, right at the beginning of the episode, even, they showed, they showed Keiichi getting ready for school, Rena getting ready for school, Mion getting ready for school, and then Satoko and Rika getting ready for school, and Rika's just staring at her calendar. So I'm just like, another time loop, huh, Rika? How's it feel? Maybe you'll win this time. But yeah, the anime is really good so far, even if the pacing is way faster than the visual novel. Like, it ended right before the axe jump scare, so to speak, at the trash heap. I think that's the second time they went to the trash heap, right? No, that's still the first time. Yeah, because Keiichi was looking at the tabloids, and then Rena came back with the axe. She wasn't actually holding tea, though, because they still mentioned the tea, but she didn't come back with tea. So that's something. That's a little weird thing there. Like, they had the line about her bringing back barley tea, but she only came back with the axe, unless she was holding tea in her other hand and I didn't notice it. But yeah, the anime is doing really good at, like, switching between haha cutesy fun times and shit your pants horror, even though it hasn't been that scary yet. But yeah, I like what it's doing so far. I like the art style. They cut out the train scene still, which is weird, and they cut out a lot of the club stuff. Like, there was only one game they played, and it wasn't even one that was in the visual novel. It was a completely new thing, unless it shows up in a later arc, and they just decided to move it to this arc, because they didn't do Zombie Tag, or Tycoon, or Clue, or anything like that. Even though Clue shows up later. They did a scavenger hunt. So that's something. That is indeed something. But
like, as far as the pacing goes, something that I think we all should understand a little bit is that, from what I can tell, and this is just my perspective on this, if you have a different one, that's, of course, your own perspective, Higurashi and Umineko and Kekkonia, I suppose, from the little bit of that I've played, because I actually haven't finished Phase 1 of Kekkonia yet, but I should probably get on that eventually. They're very exposition, inner thoughts heavy. Like, there's a lot of words, but not necessarily that much action per word, if that makes sense. Like, in Umineko, there's parts where it's a bit more because the intellectual battles, I guess I'll call them, there's still a lot of words, but that's the point. It's a lot of dialogue. So of course, animating it's going to be a lot faster because they're cutting out a lot of the words, a lot of the description. Because, like, for a visual novel, it reads a lot like a book, but just without, like, describing, like, character appearances, location appearances, and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of expository, words, I guess. So, yeah. So it makes sense. Like, Keiichi in the anime ate his breakfast in, like, 5 seconds. But in the visual novel, he talks for a good 5 minutes about his mom's cooking and how good she is at cooking and how he regrets having never frickin' appreciated it before. But now that he lives in Hinamizawa, he appreciates it a lot more. None of that. He just ate his breakfast and went. Because, yeah. So that's something. Also, Tomotake's a lot older than I thought he was. Like, he looks way older in the anime than he does in the visual novel here. Like, in the visual novel, he looks like upper 20s, lower 30s. But in the anime, he looks like 45. So, that's something. Yeah. Otherwise, that's about everything I have to say about the anime. So, we're gonna call spoiler times off, but I still have another announcement to make. Welcome back, people who muted for spoilers. I have one more thing to say. This is not spoilery, but it plays into what I was talking about. Since the pacing of the anime was as fast as it was, it looks like they're going to get through this first arc in 6-ish episodes. So that would mean that they'd probably start the second arc in the anime, like, halfway through November. So we have, like, a month and a half, 5 weeks or so until then. So what I'm going to do is, I'm assuming that this episode's going to be the finale. It might be 2 hours, but we'll see. I'm just assuming gonna be the finale. So this will be going up on October 4th. At least in my time zone. It might be the 3rd or, well, more likely the 5th. If you live in a more ahead time zone, like Asia, Australia-ish. So, yeah. Or if you live just like 12-ish hours ahead of America. If you live 10 hours ahead of America... Wait, 8. If you live 8 hours ahead of America, it'll be on the 5th. So, yeah, regardless, on the 6th, I'm going to post a little buffer video, probably Among Us, that I recorded with my friends, but it might be Smash Bros, it might be Jackbox. I haven't fully decided yet, but yeah. And then starting on the 8th, I'll just jump into Chapter 2. I just want to take a little buffer day, and then get into the next one. And I'll probably do that, depending on how fast we get through it. I might just jump into the 3rd chapter also, because the 3rd chapter's probably going to start in the anime in January, if I had to guess. Around episode 13, 14-ish. So, yeah, and then it seems like since the 4th arc is so short, they'll probably cover that in, like, 2 to 4 episodes. Because apparently the original anime covered it in 2 episodes, which is probably why I don't remember it at all. So, yeah, that'll probably be towards the very, very end of the season, so March. So, we got a lot of time to get through those 4 chapters. I think if I can at least get through the second one by the time that it starts airing, in the anime, we've got a lot of time until I have to... Well, no, we don't actually have that much time until January after that, so I probably will just jump straight into the 3rd chapter with another buffer video. And I don't know how long gameplay-wise the 4th arc is. I suppose if, like, the 1st arc and the 2nd arc are, like, 12, 13-ish hours, and they condense that into, like, 6 episodes in the anime. Because I imagine the pacing's gonna slow down when they get into the more horrific stuff. So, like, I'd imagine, like, they probably wouldn't get to the mochi scene until, like, maybe episode 4, if I had to guess. But they'll probably get through the festival in episode 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they get through the festival in episode 2. And they may... I don't know if they would end the 2nd episode talking about Tomatake's death with his conversation with Loishi. Maybe, maybe not. I don't remember how fast... I do know for a fact that this arc was covered in, like, 4 episodes in the original anime. Because I was very confused my first time watching it. I was like, what? Well, I thought these were supposed to be main characters. Why are they all dead? Huh. I'm interested. How's the rest of the show gonna go on? And then it was just like, what? Now they're all alive again. And who's this other character? But, yeah. We're gonna jump straight into the 2nd chapter on the 8th. We'll probably jump into the 3rd chapter after a buffer video when I complete the 2nd chapter. And we might jump into the 4th immediately after that. We'll just have to play it by ear. So, yeah. Let's continue then. A familiar ceiling. The smell of the bed and pillows. I knew them well. Was this my room? Normally there wouldn't be anyone in my room besides me, but their presence made me spring wide awake. When I did that, pain shot throughout my entire body. Oh, hi, Rena, you're diagonal.
Feeling alright? I think you'd better just lie down for a bit.
Why was Rena in my room? Blood began to surge through my muscles and my capillaries. Okay, specifically your capillaries? Good one, dude. But Rena's smile belonged to the Rena I knew well. I knew I shouldn't let myself feel this way, but I relaxed thinking that this version of Rena was safe. Why am I...
Don't you remember?
After losing consciousness, nothing at all. My body had become more lethargic than I could ever have imagined. I guess that would be the expected outcome after exerting everything I had back there. I tried to at least clear my head, but I just couldn't shake the sluggish feeling out of my mind. Oh, one more thing I want to say about the anime real quick. The opening song from the original was in it. I really hope that the opening for the anime is just a remade version of that original opening, because that original opening is so good, dude. Seriously. I don't care as much about the ending, because I don't actually remember the ending song. I used to skip endings way back when, and I still skip endings a little bit, but it depends on the show, and it depends on how good the song is. I at least watch it once, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I skip it, so yeah. Did I read this line? I'll read it again, just in case. I tried to at least clear my head, but I just couldn't shake the sluggish feeling out of my mind.
I called the doctor. He should be here soon. I think you'd better just lie down until then.
I wasn't injured seriously enough to merit calling a doctor, but knowing that someone impartial was coming was slightly reassuring. Why am I here? I'm sure I was at the dam site.
That's what I want to know. What happened? When I got there, Keiichi-kun was already passed out.
That's why I'm the one who wants to know. I was attacked by 2 weirdos. As I talked about it, I finally remembered what happened right before I passed out. Recalling that memory and the terror that went along with it caused the fogginess around my head to clear right up. Let's forget about those 2 for now. I didn't expect Rena to be nursing me. I thought Rena was trying to kill me. She would have had the perfect chance while I was unconscious. Not only did she not kill me, she had nursed me back to health. Amazing you could drag me all the way back here. Wasn't I heavy? Looking at Rena's delicate frame, it was hard to believe that she had not only gotten me back home, but even dragged me all the way up to the 2nd floor. Did she have some help? Yeah.
Don't you remember, Keiichi-kun?
Rena appeared a bit surprised, but still kept her smile.
I only propped you up on my shoulder. You said you could walk on your own and that you were fine. You don't remember?
I didn't remember. My memory was fuzzy after the point where I lost consciousness. What about those two?
Huh?
When you got there, Rena, the ones with me, or rather, those two guys...
There wasn't anyone.
She said it bluntly. Okay. The way she stated it felt slightly unpleasant. I was just too timid at the time. I might have been able to force some answers out of Rena, but if I did that, then this kind Rena might transform into the scary Rena who I didn't know. Fearing that, I didn't press any further. Thinking about it, it was the obvious choice. If both of those men were there, I don't think Rena would even have stood a chance. I couldn't find a way to explain it unless I assumed she brought me here after those two were already gone. Rena was still smiling. Her eyes sparkled warmly. Yet, I felt like I was hallucinating when I saw something. Something akin to a shadow slowly creeping across her face. That small omen sent shivers down my spine. While Rena was still Rena, I needed to make contact. I needed to contact Oishi-san. Rena stopped me when I tried to get out of bed. She said it would aggravate my wounds, so I should sleep. I'd like to go to the bathroom, though.
Sorry.
Rena couldn't say anything else. While Rena stayed in the room, I quickly went downstairs to get the phone receiver in the living room. I don't think this happened in the original anime. When I approached the front door, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. It must have been the doctor Rena had called. It was strange for a patient to welcome in the doctor who was making a house call, but it would be incredibly reassuring to have him here for the considerable time it would take Oishi-san to get here. I carelessly opened the door with that simple assumption, and regretted it almost instantly. Oh, okay. That makes more sense. Mion? Oh, you look just fine. I heard you collapsed, so I came to check up on you. How did you know I collapsed? I heard from Rena over the phone. Do I need any reason other than that? I understood why she would call a doctor, but why Mion too? Rena was descending the stairs behind me. Rena, doesn't Kei-chan look pretty alright? She made me worry for nothing.
That's true. Maybe I worried for nothing as well.
They both began laughing. It appeared to be cheerful laughter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a darkness looming over them. Whoa! What's up with the shoe rack? How did it get like this? The shoe rack that I'd smashed to pieces had been like that since yesterday. I fell, you see, and the bat I was holding at the time slammed into it. This is what happens when you swing around something you're not used to handling. I kept the fact that it was none of her business to myself.
But leaving it like this will really startle your parents when they get home. I'll fix it up for you later.
Now, come on, Kei-chan. The terminally ill need their rest. Come, back in bed, back in bed. Both of them urged me up the stairs. I had no chance to call Oishi-san, yet. I was pushed into my bed. As it was the first time Mion had been in my room, she began searching around it intently. She fiddled around my room and was scolded by Rena. You can imagine how it went. It was uncomfortable having my room poked around, but the conversation was so benign that it was heartwarming. During that innocent conversation, Mion said something as though it was perfectly ordinary. Rena? Did you call the director?
Yep. Right after I called Michan. He said he'd be right over.
Director? That out-of-place word gave me a bad feeling. Rena called a doctor, then called Mion. And after that, she called a director? Who was this director? Since Rena and Mion's conversation was so peaceful, it only felt slightly odd. What are you two talking about? Who's this director? Didn't you know, Kei-chan? We mean the director when we say director. Okay, it's capitalized, so that's weird.
Like the director of a movie. Or like a foreman of a construction site.
Okay, sure. I don't even know what that would be, actually, unless it's breaking the fourth wall and it's a joke.
I dug through all of my memories for a director who might have business with me. Only one thing came to mind. What Rena had just said. The construction site foreman. The very first victim of the first incident. The dismemberment at the damn construction site. The foreman? But that was strange. He was supposed to be dead. There was no way they could call him. I don't understand what you guys are talking about. What does that director have to do with me? You said he was coming. Did you mean to my house? I asked one obvious question after another, but all the two of them did was smile coolly at each other. There was a huge difference between how the two of them appeared and how my suspicions were playing out. Slowly, I felt discomfort and panic welling up inside me. I couldn't understand what Rena and Mion were talking about. Kei-chan, you've gotten into baseball lately, haven't you? Pretty sure the director will be happy to hear that. Oh. Okay, I still don't know who that is, but probably some baseball dude. So who is this director?
The director is the director.
So who is this director? I can't do both voices at once, so congrats. Rena and Mion looked at each other and laughed haughtily. That disturbing cackle unpleasantly resounded around me. Yeah, good one. That laugh, long enough to be unsettling, ended abruptly. And then demons. Nope, never mind. Oh yeah, we should finish up before the director comes. You remember, don't you, Kei-chan? Her face was laughing, but Mion's eyes told a different story. Remember what?
Keiichi-kun, had he forgotten, I wonder? About the penalty. About the penalty! Did you really forget? The homework with the mochi? The homework where you were supposed to guess which one Rena made? You forgot about that homework, didn't you?
I certainly did have that homework, but I had thrown away the rest of the mochi after I found that sewing needle. So I wasn't able to answer which one Rena made. The penalty for that? Why now? Good one, guys. What's the joke, though? No doubt my question was written all over my face. Their answer to my question was that dry laughter. I could no longer make heads or tails of anything. I began to think that this entire day was somehow insane. Wow, what was your first fucking clue? Strange. Incomprehensible. Being chased by Rena. Attacked by strange men. The penalty Mion and Rena were talking about. Guys, I still don't get what's funny. What were these two laughing at? It didn't take that long for me to realize that I had been dragged into an abnormal situation. Who were these two? Who were these people? Who were these doppelgangers of Rena and Mion? Uh-oh. Rena had gotten behind me at some point. Oh, here we go, it's time. Why was she pinning my arms behind my back? What are you doing?
Don't move. This is your penalty.
My body was already very sluggish, and Rena pinning my arms made it that much harder to move. The squeaking is more prevalent when the volume's louder, who would have thought? I seriously tried to struggle, but she wouldn't even budge. My panic began to well up, and I realized this is well beyond the realm of jokes and pleasantries. This freakishly monstrous strength. It would have been impossible for the Rena that I knew. These thin, frail arms grasping me firmly. Whose arms were they? Kei-chan, no struggling. Club rule number... it doesn't matter which one. You can't fight against a penalty. Mion. No, that thing that looked like Mion spoke to me like how Mion would speak to me. What a fucking line. Jesus. But I was certain that this was not Mion. Someone who wasn't Mion. Someone who was just pretending to be Mion. How many times do I have to say Mion? Need to finish this up before the director comes. Mion fished into her pockets and pulled out something bizarre. I could tell what it was just by looking, but for such a thing to be in her pocket, my mind wouldn't accept it. Needle time? What is that? It was a small, syringe. It was a small, clear syringe, the kind a doctor might use if you went to them with a high fever. Rena held me even tighter, and I could hear that clattering laughter that no longer sounded like laughter blaring into my ear. That eerie laughter. It wasn't something that the Rena I knew could ever produce from her own throat. This thing that was pretending to be Rena. Was this the real laugh? Unable to defend myself, the syringe Mion was holding drew closer, and that needle tip was waved in front of my face countless times. Don't worry. It won't hurt. What are you planning on doing? What kind of sick joke is this? What are you saying, Kei-chan? You know exactly what's going on, don't you? About what? I don't understand any of this at all! I know you know. No use playing the fool this late in the game. Stop talking nonsense to try and confuse me! You're going to have done to you what happened to Tomatake-san. Uh-oh. What? The same as Tomatake-san? I didn't really understand what she meant, no kidding. What did that have to do with this syringe?
You're playing dumb, Keiichi-kun. You should have realized it by now.
Rena whispered into my ear, laughing as if to admonish me. But even the way she spoke was repulsive beyond compare. Playing dumb? Me? About what? What do you mean, the same as Tomatake-san? Everyone thought at first that it was a hit and run. Except when the officer got closer to check if he was still alive, he soon noticed it wasn't a normal situation. His throat was scratched out. From a knife or something? No, nails. Nails? Nails as in fingernails? With those, gouged through? That's right. Tomatake-san had clawed out his own throat with his own nails and died. There's no way someone could die like that. So then, for that to happen, we thought drugs were to blame, but nothing of that nature was detected. That's right. The police didn't find any drugs in Tomatake-san's system. The police told me they didn't find any drugs in Tomatake-san's body. Oh, wait, that wasn't Keiichi's inner thoughts, okay. The two of them laughed together with that sickening laughter. Of course they'd laugh. To assume that such a medicine didn't exist just because the police didn't know about it was completely foolish. Meaning, the drug that caused Tomatake-san to die in such a bizarre manner did exist? If Mion injected this into me, then that would probably be all the proof I needed. That would basically mean I'd end up the same as Tomatake-san. Become hysterical, scratching out my throat in my last moments, then die. For such an outrageous drug to exist, for Mion to be holding it, and that I was about to be injected with it. At that moment, I did not feel there was any need whatsoever to question it. What kind of idiot, when he's trying to dodge a ball flying straight for his face, has time to think of a reason as to why it's flying at him? Just give up. Alright then. Mion's actions lacked any gravitas, and that made it even more terrifying. There was none of the ceremony like when someone is sentenced to death. There was no hesitation at all, as if she were brushing her teeth. Mion reached out with one hand and grabbed onto my chest. Felt like electricity had run through the back of my head and the entire world had gone dark. Did I stand up too fast? Or did someone hit me really hard in the back of the head? Having lost my sense of balance, I was assaulted by a wave of dizziness. It's splatting time. Okay, what? Why are you ending the chapter here? Isn't it Berserk mode time? I squatted down for a bit. When I came back to my senses, my entire room had changed drastically. Wait, excuse me? The numbness in my head was gone, and slowly, I could tell blood was flowing to my extremities again. How long had I been squatting here? How many minutes? Or has it been hours? It was almost as if the hands on the clock had stopped moving the entire time my eyes were closed. That's how little time passed. Really? The air in the room wasn't filled with that madness from before, only a dull silence. Rena wasn't there pinning my arms, and Mion wasn't there about to inject me with a needle. No way. Could it be? All of it? Was a hallucination? There was no other presence in the room besides my own. It was the weirdest experience I'd ever had. I was certainly with Rena and Mion. I doubted my sanity for a moment, good, but I was also seized with some sort of comfort, weird. I guess that terrible ordeal was a hallucination. Neither Rena nor Mion, they would never do something so terrible. My head grew hot. I could tell my emotions were welling up. Why? That wasn't a reason to cry. Why? It was sorrow. Why was I sad? I don't understand. Kind to everyone, not discriminating against age or gender. Mion. That Mion was sprawled by the window in an unnatural pose. Blood stained her a deep red from her head down to her chest. The bright crimson smeared on the walls. That splatter had undoubtedly come from Mion. She always had that bright smile and was kind to me from the day I transferred. Rena. That same Rena was slumped at my feet and was making the same pool of blood as Mion. I couldn't comprehend what had happened. Did someone come to save me? Then they beat these two down? With this metal bat? I finally noticed the weight in my right hand. How long had it been there? It was Satoshi's metal bat. It was covered in a deep red. There was no doubt that this was the weapon used to mutilate both of them. And I was holding that weapon. I was the only person in the house. That's interesting, though. They cut out the scene of him. Wait, no, they don't cut out the scene. Because it's at the beginning. Right. Oh my fucking god. I'm a dumbass. That is interesting, though, how they... Because right at the beginning... Well, it doesn't tell it in detail. That's interesting, how... It's off-screen, basically. Him going crazy and killing him. Huh. What? But it could also open for interpretation that Keiichi didn't do it. For people who are experiencing the visual novel for the first time. Because in the anime, it's fucking clear as day, Keiichi did it. Even in the new anime. So, yeah. Looking at this objectively, I couldn't think of anyone other than myself who could have done it. I did this? That's right. Keiichi Maebara. Of course I did it. I told myself gently, as if coaxing myself. Hey, me. There's no reason for you to remember it, nor is there a need to regret it. Eat or be eaten. You get that, don't you? But the blood, there's so much! Neither Rena nor Mion had moved an inch. It wasn't just a split forehead and a trickle of blood. Nothing that simple. The entire room was splattered with red, and that told me it didn't end with just 2 or 3 strikes. Are they dead? Both of them? The depths of my mind were calm, but on the surface, I was panicking and agitated. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. What happened to your usual calm self? Yeah, it's gone. Come on now. Do like you always do. Throw your head back and take a deep breath. Come on. Once, twice, breathe deeply. Calm down. Calm down. I chanted that over and over in my head, and relaxed. But how could ya? Color came back to my vision, and smells reinfused the air. At the same time, I remembered what happened when I blacked out. Oh. Oh no, you're gonna tell it now? Okay. Rena and Mion had attacked me. They were about to inject me with whatever caused the same symptoms as Tomitake-san. But right before that happened, I fought back. I twisted my whole body and threw Rena as she was pinning my arms. Then I followed through with my spin and rammed my foot as hard as I could into Mion's torso. It was soft. Rena tried jumping on me, so I tackled her as hard as I could and slammed her against the wall. I didn't let that brief moment of having them off balance slip by. Satoshi's bat that was left carelessly by the side of my desk. How'd you win a 2v1 like that, Keiichi? Bleep. At that moment, everything went pitch black. There was nothing recorded past this point in the videotape of my mind. No, that wasn't right. It wasn't that there was nothing recorded. It was recorded just fine. Just the other me inside myself had told myself not to look and had turned off the TV. Ah, Shadow Keiichi, huh? Just because the screen had gone black and I couldn't see it, didn't mean that the videotape within me hadn't recorded it. The TV was just off. The video was still playing. The tape within me, creaking along, still playing. On the other end of that pitch black screen, that horrifying video was still playing on. Compared to this, though, this, the scene right before my eyes, was still so difficult to take in. There was blood splattered everywhere on the walls, the two of them in these unnatural poses, not a sign of movement from them. I couldn't even tell if they were breathing. No matter what the circumstances were, my friends, these girls, I had attacked them. I may have even killed them. But if I hadn't done this, I would have been the one done for. Balancing that out on an imaginary scale, it felt odd that I'd even feel bad about it. Even if it was a bit excessive, this was justifiable self-defense. Okay, dude. Sure! The proof was all here. The two of them collapsed here in Mion's syringe. Mion's syringe filled with some unknown drug would certainly solve the mystery surrounding the incident with Tomitake-san. And from the fact that both of these two were involved, they'd be able to pick out the criminals one after the other. Still, I might be suspected for this, but that was just fine. Anyway, now this should be a police affair. This wouldn't fade into the darkness like Rena's past incidents. As long as the police were involved, that should bring this to a close. They'll probably revisit their investigation on the chain of incidents. Oishi-san would definitely get to the bottom of it. Meaning, my wish of not wanting to die, of wanting to know the truth, that would be fulfilled in its most basic form. It was all a matter of time now. The doctor Rena called should be getting here soon. I'll confess everything to him. I needed to contact Oishi-san. At that moment, I remembered. Besides the doctor, a director had been called. It was easy to imagine that they were someone deeply involved with the incidents, judging from Rena and Mion's conversation. The ache in my chest, caused by the gruesome deed I'd done, dissipated rapidly. It was not over yet. This place was no longer safe. Stay calm, Keiichi Maebara. It's not over yet. I needed to live long enough to tell the police of this incident. At that moment, I felt like I had heard someone's voice from outside. Since people were speaking, it must mean there was more than one person. I moved the curtain ever so slightly and peered outside. It was a bizarre sight. About 4 or 5 grown men were all gathered at the gate. They very much resembled the 2 men who had assaulted me at the dam site today. Those 2 might even be among them. There was one person there wearing a white coat, but he didn't look like a doctor at all. My gut told me he was in disguise, only posing as a doctor. That guy would probably ring the bell and get me to open the front door. Pretend to be a doctor to get me to open the door, and then the rest of them would all rush in at once. At that moment, I saw the car parked behind the men and my heart nearly skipped a beat. The white van! Uh-oh. Run, Keiichi, run! No mistaking it. That van. The one that had tried to run me down? The man in the white coat entered the gate and headed towards the front door. The rest of the men hid in the bushes and watched him. I probably couldn't pretend that I wasn't home. Undoubtedly, they'd just break the window and enter. I needed to get out of here somehow. Then, use a public phone to contact the Oishi-san. Then meet up somewhere. First of all, I need a weapon, then shoes. But before all of that, there was one thing that I had to do. I had no intention of dying. I'd live, and reveal the truth about this nonsensical curse of Oyashiro-sama. But what would happen from here on, regardless of how determined I was, may bring about my demise. And that was why. There was one thing more important than getting out of here right now. I need to get that clock out quickly and take down the note hidden behind it. Damn it! The tape was sticking to it fast. I'd be fine if it was torn a little. I opened up the slightly torn note and began writing another passage with a ballpoint pen. If I wasn't able to inform Oishi-san, then the only thing I could rely on was this note. I never thought a piece of torn, college-ruled notebook paper could be this reliable before. I had no time. I'd only write what I knew right now. I needed to leave some sort of information that would lead them to uncover the truth. Rena and Mion are conspirators of the perpetrators. This was an undeniable fact. I still didn't want to believe it. But it was a fact. Anyway, I'd leave all the information that would help lead them to finding the perpetrators. There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This was everything I was able to see from the window. There may be more. Also, there was that unidentified person known as the director. To begin with, the term director didn't even mesh with Hinamizawa at all. If they were going to include the directors from the past incidents, then the only one is the construction foreman, the victim from the first murder. The very first victim in the chain of incidents. Killed in a lynching, his body divided into 6 pieces. His right arm was never discovered. The police should have confirmed that death, but Rena and Mion did both call him director. They said director. They wouldn't use that term to refer to someone who was dead. The police would never even conceive that someone who was deceased could be involved. Could that be some sort of oversight? I didn't know. But even if I didn't know, it could be a big hint for Oishi-san. That's right. They needed to start fresh from the first incident. It wasn't just a simple dismemberment, but it started a string of mysterious deaths that would follow. So then, there must be something hidden there. Please reinvestigate the victim from the dismemberment incident. He's alive. His death should have been established after an autopsy. Logically, you would think as much. But was that really the case? Could it have been some sort of ploy that they were able to deceive the police with? I shouldn't jump to conclusions, but he may still be alive. I had no time to ponder that right now. Oh yeah, there's something even more important I needed to write. Tomitake-san's death was from an unknown drug. That's right. That drug, it was an irreplaceable piece of evidence. No doubt, just by having this, everything would be uncovered. I couldn't just leave that vital clue lying on the floor. This syringe is proof. Writing that down, I stuck the syringe onto the back of the clock with plenty of tape, so it absolutely would not slip out and fall to the floor. Firmly. Firmly! Ding dong! The bell rang. They were here! I couldn't write anymore. But even still, there was one last thing that I had to write. I have no idea why it has become like this. This may be the closest thing to the truth out of everything I wrote on this note. If you are reading this, then I am probably already dead, though you may or may not find my body. If I was going to write out everything that could happen, either dying from the curse or being demoned away, you, who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. That feels like it's written to the reader, huh? With this, my last will and testament was complete. It wasn't certain that I was going to die, but it was my final plea, just in case. I folded the note, stuck it back onto the back of the clock, and returned the clock back to its usual spot. I couldn't help but pray. Oishi-san, if something happens to me, I'll leave the rest to you. After that, I gazed down silently at Rena and Mion. This was probably the last time we'd ever see each other. Rena, Mion, I really had thought all of us were friends. But why did it end up like this? I never had any fun in my previous school. I only worried about standardized test scores, about if the school I hoped to get into was where I really wanted to go or a safety net. That was all I talked about. It was a dull life. The people I called friends were also my rivals in studying, in competitions, in personal records, and standardized test scores. Everyone here taught me how unhealthy that lifestyle was. This month was really fun. Making a fuss over lunch, making a fuss over the club, making a fuss over the festival. Something hot began dripping from my face. Uncontrollable tears. I should have had no obligation to shed tears for them, but they wouldn't stop. Even if they were after my life, even if they were trying to kill me, everything that happened this month, I wouldn't forget it. Or could it be those happy days were all a facade as well? Was it all a trap, meticulously orchestrated up until today, to ensnare me? Could it have been that I had just arbitrarily assumed that they were my friends? That couldn't have been the case. Both Rena and Mion, they really were my friends. Those happy days, there was nothing fake or unclear about them. Someone probably forced them to try and kill me. Or their minds were taken over, possessed by the supernatural entity known as Oyashiro-sama. Regardless, both Rena and Mion, they were the best friends ever. And when they were coming after me, it wasn't of their own volition. But they weren't the kind of people to sell off their friends, no matter what means were employed to force them. And there was no way such a thing as being possessed by Oyashiro-sama could happen in reality. Then, did the real Rena and Mion come after me? What was I thinking? What a silly, dumb idea. Having beaten down both Rena and Mion, I was still debating if they were the real ones or fakes. There was no real or fake. Only the reality that was before me. Rena and Mion were sprawled out at my feet. That was the only truth. I was only trying to twist the facts to my benefit, that I had beaten my friends to death. No matter how I spun it, it wouldn't change reality. Rena and Mion were both dead. It felt like there was a crack in the dam of strange emotions I was holding back. It felt like my calm state, which was nothing more than a bluff, had receded, and in that opening, insanity was leaking out. I killed them. I killed them. Rena and Mion, I killed them! The doorbell rang once again. The unrelenting echo pulled me back into a state of composure once again. I didn't have a moment to spare. Quickly, I needed to get away! I didn't want to die. I would uncover everything after that. My chair is creaking a fuck ton. This thing is so old. The identity of whoever or whatever had pushed me this far. Even if I had to drink mud and eat grass, I would survive. I would survive. I would definitely survive. I killed Rena for that very reason. I also killed Mion. I went that far just to keep living. So I can't die. For my sake, and for the sake of the late Rena and Mion, I have to survive. I ran towards the door and grabbed my shoes. The doorbell rang again, as if to urge me on. Behind the single, solitary door, they were there. Keeping quiet, I headed towards the kitchen. Headed towards the back door. Before opening the back door, I put my ear to it and checked for people outside. No one? After I put on my shoes, I opened the door slowly so as to not make a sound. There he is! The back door! A piercing voice echoed out. That voice stabbed through me, setting my hair on end. I had to run! Get out of here, Keiichi! One after the other, I felt stuff like rationale and intelligence. Those things you use when you have time to spare spill out of me. I didn't feel any pain from the branches scratching my arms and forehead. My autonomously pulsing heart also felt neither fatigue nor pain. My entire being just wished to live. There was nothing else it desired. It probably had no complaints whatsoever, so of course I wouldn't feel fatigue. I just ran, just recklessly rushing in the direction I was already heading. Even if nobody was chasing after me, I'd still be running like this. There wasn't a thought in my mind about where I was headed. Turning around, I felt a presence right next to me. That presence was, without a doubt, chasing me like my shadow. If I took even one misstep, I would be devoured. That's what I thought, so I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I ran at full speed. Congratulations, Keiichi, you murdered your friends.
Kwa 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 kwa. That was the chirping of the Higurashi telling me it was evening, trying to tell me something. And then I finally heard it. The wailing cry of the victims who didn't make it. Would I be joining them? Perhaps. Quack, 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 quack. Only the Higurashi knew. They knew everything. They definitely knew. So, I ran towards where I could hear more of the Higurashi's chirps. But the farther I ran, the farther away their chirping became. I couldn't get near them. Why are you all running away? Was it my fault? Was I the one to blame? Then I'll apologize. I'm sorry. 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 I was about to say, geez, I get it, dude. I felt that only the Higurashi knew. Why? Really? Dude, this part's slow. I remember this part being like 10 minutes in the anime. I don't even remember him ever running from Rena or fighting dudes. Achievement unlocked, chased by shadows. Where are we now? The smoking room was filled with a cloud of cigarette smoke. The expensive smoke filter gave off some crackling electric noise, but it didn't seem like it was doing anything at all. Why do smokers have to be shoved so far down this corridor where the sun didn't even reach? I recalled hearing that the tax revenue from tobacco was about 1/10 of the municipality's revenue. We were the most heavily taxed members of this municipality, so I really wish they'd show us a little more respect. Are we in Oishi's perspective? Who are you? Kumagai. Why would you discard the 5 manzu there? It's just decreasing your options. One of the younger detectives was having a staring contest with the mahjong magazine called Next Turn. You're still in Tenpai if you cut the 5 manzu. If you're betting on a haite, then shouldn't you be going into it with a mangon? Oh, are we not in Oishi's perspective? Kuma-chan, look at the pond. They all discarded a 5 manzu. It's a safe tile. You'd hate if, at endgame, someone was sitting on a tenpai on the last turn, wouldn't you? The kid let out another groan, put out a cigarette, then took out another one. I just don't agree. Why would you reduce your own options? By the way, you can't call Ron with your winning tile in that haite. What? Why is that? Just then, I heard a voice coming from down the hall. Are you here, Oishi-san? You have a call from a civilian. Oh, okay, here we go. Whoa, ain't that something? Well, see you soon. Okay, now I know what's happening. Why can't you call Ron on it? Hold on for a second, Oishi-san. That guy has a sprite, so he's gotta be important, but all he's doing is talking about mahjong. Great. The man sitting in the seat Oishi-san was heading towards waved at the telephone receiver. Outside line, from a payphone. Oh, I thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting. This is Oishi. Who is it? Oishi-san? Hello? If it isn't Maebara-san. Why, good evening. From the tone of Maebara-kun's voice, I already knew he was in a predicament. This was the first time Maebara-kun had phoned me. We're in Oishi's perspective, technically, okay? And he was calling from a payphone. Please calm down. Did something happen? Well... His voice was erratic over the line. He had completely lost his sense of composure. After checking that nobody else could hear, I prompted him in a hushed tone. What happened? Calm down, Maebara-san. I can have the local officers head to your location. I'll be there soon, too. I think that's... impossible. His voice was quivering and hoarse. He wasn't surrounded by people even as he was making this call, was he? Maebara-san, you're calling from a payphone right now, right? Where is that payphone? There were no other sounds besides Maebara-kun's voice. It had to be a phone booth. I scratched out a note and thrust it at my colleague sitting across from me. Hinamizawa, phone booth. He understood quickly and hastily started on the internal lines. Calm down, Maebara-san. What is your current situation? It was best practice to avoid flustering someone panicking, but this was an urgent case. Maebara-kun didn't just get in trouble, get away, and then call me. He was in the midst of something dangerous right now. But yelling at Maebara-kun right now would just needlessly cause him to be even more frantic. Maebara-kun wasn't just calling to seek help. He was trying to tell us something more than that. And whatever that was, if I didn't get it from this call, I was certain there would never be another chance. My colleague pushed a note in front of me. There's only one booth in Hinamizawa. A patrol car is on the way. 5 minutes. That's too long! How many officers are in there? 2. Not enough. If it was as I imagined, there were likely quite a few people surrounding Maebara-kun. 5 minutes was too long. Did you call the officer stationed in Hinamizawa? He's scheduled to be on patrol. They're currently out and it'll be impossible to contact them. God damn! Kuma-chan, bring the car around! Understood. Hello? Oishi-san? Hello! It's alright. I can hear you loud and clear. There was something wrong with Maebara-kun. That was a normal coughing sound. Vomiting? Or was it blood? Had he already been attacked? Was he injured? Maebara-san, the police are on their way. They'll be there in a couple of minutes, so hold on somehow. Hello? Can you hear me? Maebara-san? You could hear on the other end of the line that he was having a coughing fit. The worst possible situation popped into my head. Maebara-san! Who is the culprit? How many are there? I thought at first the culprit was human. I couldn't tell if that was a cough or vomiting. Are you alright? Maebara-san! I thought that the culprit was a person and not Oyashiro-sama's curse. Up until right now. But I guess in the end... It was an intense bout of coughing, then vomiting. But I guess Oyashiro-sama does exist. No, he's here. Maebara-san, please! Just please calm down! I had been thinking it was strange for a while now. It's been following me this whole time. I run and run and run and run, but it just sticks to me like my shadow. But slowly, so slowly, it's digging itself into my back. Maebara-san, are they, right now, perhaps, right behind you? Behind me. Right behind me. Please, Maebara-san, I can tell you're scared, but please, who is it that's right behind you? I can't just look behind me. If I do, I'll... I understand that you're scared, but please tell me. You just need to turn around a bit. Who is it? Who's behind you, Maebara-san? Right after I said that, I could hear him vomiting intensely. What followed was a nightmarish sound. Maebara-san, it couldn't be that you're clawing out your own throat? There was no answer, but I could hear something like scratching. There was a bang, as if something was being hit. Maebara-kun had probably dropped the receiver. I could hear groaning and vomiting over on the other end, and a repeating, abnormal noise. Hello? Hello? Maebara-san? Hello? I knew how far away my voice would sound on the other end, but I couldn't help but shout. At that moment, I heard whispering coming from the other end. I couldn't tell what he was saying. From the way he was saying it, was he talking to himself? Or was he talking to someone there? Hello? Maebara-san? Rather than whispering, it was some kind of mantra he was chanting over and over. I focused my senses, trying to pick up what he was saying. What was he repeating? What exactly? Beep. Suddenly the line went dead. Did he use up his time? It was because it was a payphone. Ugh. It was because it cut out so abruptly. The last thing he said came out so clearly in my mind. Oishi-san, the car is good to go. Oishi-san? It was... I'm sorry. Oishi-san? That's what he was repeating over and over. He said, I'm sorry. I had a gut feeling. There was no longer a need to hurry. I could hear the chirp of the Higurashi,
spilling in from the open window. Quee, 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 quee. I should have been able to hear them this entire time. I just wasn't paying any attention. Why did I focus on them all of a sudden? Quee, 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 quee. Were they trying to tell me something? Only the Higurashi knew. That's how I felt. June 1983. In Hinamizawa, a remote village near Shishibone City, there was a murder involving 2 female students. The suspect is Keiichi Maebara, aged 1X apparently. Apparently his age was impossible to determine, huh? His suspect called over his 2 female classmates, Rena Ryugu, Mio and Sonozaki, to his house and beat them to death with a metal bat. The scene of the crime was the suspect's room on the 2nd floor of his house. The inside of the room was covered with a significant quantity of splattered blood, and there were signs of a struggle with the victims. In addition to the scene of the crime, the entryway, living room, and kitchen all had traces of a struggle. At the entryway, the shoe rack and wall had evidence of being impacted by a strong blunt force. It is believed to have been the same bat as the murder weapon. Having no traces of blood, it is believed the destruction occurred before the murders. There is a possibility that the suspect overpowered his victims to keep them from fleeing. In the living room, the rug had been pulled back, then thrown aside. It is hard to believe that this had a connection to the struggle with the victims, and thus the reason for this remains unknown. They're not going to mention the note on the kitchen? Oh no, wait, they probably are. In the kitchen, the garbage bag was torn apart and its contents were spread out on the floor. Garbage was strewn about in the surrounding area, and handprints believed to belong to the suspect were discovered. It is believed that the suspect had for some reason taken out the garbage and struck it with his fists. The reason for this remains unknown. In addition, there was a note stuck to the fridge. The words, "Was there a needle?" were written on it. The meaning behind this remains unclear. Just in case, the garbage was searched, but a needle was not discovered. Though the garage door was functional, it had been left open ever since the suspect moved in. The garage door was found closed. The suspect's fingerprints were discovered on the garage door. The reason behind this remains unknown. The suspect fled the scene of the crime. However, a patrolling officer, Hinamizawa Local PD, found the suspect collapsed inside a phone booth. At the time of discovery, the suspect was unconscious in critical condition. He was rushed to the local hospital for treatment, but did not regain consciousness and died 24 hours later. The results of the autopsy indicate the immediate cause of death to have been hypovolemic shock. It was determined that the suspect had clawed at his own throat with his fingernails, and the resulting bleeding caused his death. With the similarity to the death of Tomitake-san the prior week, the police believe there to be a connection and have opened an investigation. However, due to the wishes of the local authorities, it will be a confidential investigation. Due to the abnormal nature of the death, it was suspected that drugs were involved, but as with Tomitake-san, no traces were discovered. What prompted all this remains inexplicable. As such, this case is being treated as an act committed on impulse. However, with several accounts of the suspect's bizarre behavior leading up to the incident, it is possible that this was premeditated. Separated from his group of friends, isolation, inexplicable behavior. Several days before the incident, the suspect began carrying around a metal bat. The suspect was observed displaying aggressive behavior, as well as talking to himself at school. His classmates have actually heard portions of what he was saying. 2 days before the incident, the suspect declared to his parents the possibility of his death. Due to these circumstances, the police have begun an investigation on the possibility that this crime was not committed on impulse, but was instead planned several days in advance. Afterwards, a note was found in the suspect's room that he had written himself. The note was written on 2 sheets from a B5 College Road notebook that had each been torn in half. And as if trying to conceal, it was stuck hidden behind a clock on the wall. The contents are as written in the appendix. The police believe it to be strongly related to the incident. The police changed their line of investigation based on the possibility that the suspect was involved in some sort of incident himself. However, no further clues were found, casting doubt on the credibility of the note. Was the crime impulsive or premeditated? With the situation unclear and no further developments, the case has been labeled as unresolved. However, the following year,
Suspicion arose regarding the nature of the note. The note was not written on 2 halves of B5 paper from 2 separate sheets, but was originally a single sheet of B5 paper. In order to erase several lines from the middle, someone had torn them out. Judging from the size of the letters, the missing section is estimated to be 2 to 3 lines. It is highly probable that the person who eliminated the lines in question is not the suspect. In addition, judging from traces of large quantities of cellophane tape being stuck to the back of the clock, speculation that something other than the note was stuck there has arisen. The person who first discovered the crime was a detective rumored to have a connection with the incident, Kurado Oishi. He underwent involuntary questioning, but denies involvement in any damages to the note. The suspect's note. I, Keiichi Maebara, am in fear for my life. I do not know why they are after my life. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Oyashiro-sama's curse. Rena and Mion are conspirators of the perpetrators. There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. This is all in the first sheet. The section below this has been ripped out. This is from the second sheet. The section above this has been ripped out. I have no idea why it has become like this. If you are reading this, then I am probably already dead, though you may or may not find my body. You who are reading this, please uncover the truth. That is my only desire. Keiichi Maebara. Ah, they blew it up. Huh. A new scenario has been unlocked. All cast review session has become available. To play it, select extra on the title menu and then pick the all cast review session. What is this? Achievement unlocked. Please uncover the truth. Huh. So, extra. What exactly is this? Oh, chapter jump. That's interesting. Tips. How many tips were there? 8, 16, 20. Damn. That's quite a few. Alright, what is this all-cast review session? Is this like tea parties? Hi. Wait, it literally is just breaking the fourth wall immediately. Okay.
Thank you for buying Higurashi When They Cry Onikakushi, a visual novel by 7th Expansion.
This was free on Steam, though. I bought it before it was free. I am disappointed in myself for buying on impulse.
How was it? If you enjoyed it, even a little bit, it would make me happy. Even a little bit is stretching it. That incredibly dark ending made me angry, you know?
That makes sense, your friends died.
Made us angry. This Onikakushi chapter is the first story that readers challenging the mystery of the entire series get to experience. So it's actually supposed to be somewhat of a prologue. How could the prologue have such an incredibly dark ending?
Yeah, but doesn't that happen sometimes? The player digging through the story in order to avoid a bad ending is the point of these types of games, after all.
It's still just the first chapter. I'm looking forward to the next one.
What happens in the next chapter? Rena, do you know?
Yeah, they said the next chapter will introduce another aspect of the story. That's a strange way of putting it. What does that mean? In this chapter, they introduced a string of mysterious deaths that were happening in Hinamizawa recently, right? The next chapter will introduce some of the history of Hinamizawa.
Ah, okay. With one strange event happening after another, I got totally lost. What exactly is Oyashiro-sama's curse about? Actually, what is Oyashiro-sama to begin with? They didn't explain it much. So this is just the characters talking about what happened? In, I'm guessing, a non-canonical sense, right?
I haven't heard much about it, but I have kind of a bad feeling about it. It feels like it'll be another one of those scary stories where somebody gets cursed again.
Tough luck for Kei-chan! What kind of curse is he gonna get hit with this time?
However, I am looking forward to seeing what kind of story it's going to be.
Keiichi's not even here, huh? Oh, hi. Sorry for being late. My bad, my bad. Oh, hi. Been a while, dude. Hey everybody. Good work today.
Same to you. Huh? Where's Kei-chan?
Keiichi-kun is already off reading the script for the next chapter. Must be hard being the main character.
Huh. That's too bad. He could have at least poked in to say hello.
Is Takano not gonna be here?
It's probably because he doesn't have any character art, so he couldn't poke his head in even if he wanted to.
Rika-san, that's what we refer to as a personal problem.
In any case, that story really was a lot of trouble. Especially for Keiichi-kun and Rena-chan.
Trouble? That was the mother of all bad ends! I wonder, what was the identity of the thing that attacked Keiichi-kun?
My theory is that it was the work of people made to look like a curse.
But Keiichi made that mysterious phone call at his demise.
Yeah, I also thought that call was strange. At that point, Kei-chan should have been certain that the culprits were people.
That really was a strange phone call. It almost sounded like he was being chased by a ghost or something. Just from that phone call, it really makes me think that it was the work of a curse after all.
Since we're all here, why don't we all share our theories? Let's start with Sonozaki-san. I absolutely believe it was people. I think it was a man-made incident that was just imitating the strange folklore floating around Hinamizawa.
Certainly. Every year on the day of the festival, for another link in the chain of mysterious deaths to happen certainly is suspicious.
That so-called chain of mysterious deaths. It has to be somebody trying to reenact the folklore. Definitely.
I think it was the curse. Looking at the scene where Keiichi-san went berserk in the entryway, and the last scene with the phone call, those cannot be explained with a human culprit.
Technically right.
When you say it that way, it really wasn't the type of scene that would make you think it was the work of an actual person.
I am hungry.
Yeah, but even then, I still think it was a person who did it. That last scene and the one with the entryway, I think that the stress must have driven him into paranoid delusions.
You aren't helping me to understand by using such complicated words. In other words, Keiichi was so scared that he was imagining things. So then, what was the meaning behind that scene? What exactly was that mysterious presence behind Keiichi?
A red herring. R-E-D-H-E-R-R-I-N-G.
Mi-chan, what do you mean by a red herring?
Like old man Tomatake here said, that scene was the result of Kei-chan having a stress-induced delusion from being mentally cornered. The overly graphic depiction was a ploy to make the player think it was a curse. That's why it was a red herring.
When you say it like that, but...
Well, it just means that there's that possibility.
In that case, the theory that Oishi-san proposed during the story, that it was a conspiracy by the villagers, was correct? What does the man himself have to say about that?
Me? It makes you think, eh?
Huh? I totally thought that Oishi-san would be behind the people explanation. Are they gonna start accusing each other?
During the story, I said it was definitely the work of people, but if a person really was to blame, that leaves a lot of loose ends.
Like what? Let us hear what Detective Oishi-san's theory is.
First of all, if a human is the culprit, then there has to be a motive. In other words, somebody has to gain something from it.
So what you mean is, if this was the work of people, there would have to be something gained from causing the chain of mysterious deaths?
Exactly. I felt that somebody could have benefited from the deaths of people related to the dam development, but the recent victims weren't related to that at all. First off, who benefits from killing Maebara-san?
I see. If you say it like that, my case is kind of weak too.
I mean, none of your money was stolen. There's no way it was human culprits. But that's not everything there is to it, right? Like Michan just said, there might have been some sort of reason for them to reenact the folklore.
Exactly. This wasn't a murder where you considered the typical motives. It makes me think that this was most likely some sort of ritualistic murder to reenact the blood-stained history of the village.
So that's the question of the hour. Who gains from this reenactment?
It's not about simple benefit, it's more of a psychological reason. I think that maybe this was an act of revenge. Something native to the region. Some connection not touched on this time around. I see. A member of some repressed family looking to air out an old grudge of their ancestors. Something like that? I don't like that. Then what is it? It couldn't be that you're leaning towards the curse explanation, Oishi-san.
That's right. The man playing the detective said so. It's decided it was a curse.
If, as Maebara-san said during the story, it was the case that Oyashiro-sama possessed Ryugu-san and Sonozaki-san and committed those acts, that would fit the evidence the most, as much as I hate to say it.
Actually, I'm of the same opinion as Oishi-san. I can't come up with any other explanation for the normally kind Rena and Michan to suddenly start acting strange like that.
About that, it may sound strange coming from the person herself, but I think that I, Mion, did it.
I don't get what Mi is saying. I'd like an explanation.
Oh, sorry. In other words, I think this may end up being a really cruel story.
Huh. Wait, Michan. You don't mean...
Taking the human culprit theory to its logical conclusion, that's how it would seem. I also have my suspicions. In other words, Ryugu-san and Sonozaki-san both actually had those personalities to begin with, and were merely deceiving Maebara-san. Am I right?
I don't like that at all! This is all the curse's fault! Rena-san and Mion-san and everybody else are all kind, nice people! I think that too. I think that Rena and Mion-chan are really good people at heart. I think that during the story, they must have been possessed by something.
So Rena also thinks it was a curse. And let me ask everybody who thinks it was a curse. There has to be a reason for a curse, right? It doesn't make sense for a curse to just indiscriminately befall someone. Can somebody explain that? Like, what's the connection between all the victims?
A curse is a curse. Human logic won't get us anywhere.
Satoko-chan, a personified deity is, in the end, nothing more than the creation of people. That's why their method of thinking is also understandable to humans. Just take a look at the Greek pantheon. They cry, get angry, get jealous. Basically, they're just like humans.
So what you're saying is that Oyashiro-sama is cursing people with some benefit in mind?
That's an odd way of putting it, but basically yes. That's why they say, far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. You do have a point.
Basically, it doesn't matter if it's Oyashiro-sama or humans. There has to be a reason. But Rika, what if that reason isn't clear? I don't know. That's right. This is still just the prologue. There's still a lot of stuff that hasn't been revealed yet.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with any more theories at this point. No, I won't be satisfied until this is all made clear.
Mion-san seems rather particular about this.
We'll just make the best with what we know. Doesn't this feel interesting? Like the club a little bit.
Ah, yeah! If you put it that way, it does seem interesting.
Now, well then, let's summarize. Let's see. I think it was a curse. Tomatake-kun thinks it was people, right? Yeah, I'll go with it being people. I also agree with the people explanation. That's not to say I hate such fantastic things like curses, but in this particular case, the connection to a curse is a little weak. Two for the people explanation, then. Ryugu-san was on the curse side of things, right?
Yep. Satoko-chan and I believe it was a curse, right? Yeah, I think it was a curse. People who say that Rena-san and Mion-san were evil to begin with are more befitting of a curse.
Well, I don't want to believe that my own personality was that twisted. But I have to keep a cool head when I'm in club mode. If I base my choice on just emotion, I'll regret it, you know?
Well now, doesn't really matter which side you pick, does it?
Huh? Rika-chan hasn't said anything yet. What do you think? I don't think that Oyashiro-sama is a bad god.
Huh, that's an interesting opinion.
I don't want to worship some bad god that just curses people. I'd like a generous god more than one that curses. That's right, Rika-chan is a shrine maiden. Yep, good opinion.
Then what? If Rika-chan doesn't believe that it was Oyashiro-sama, then do you think the perpetrators were human after all?
We'll just go with that.
So it's a tie. Well now, that means the votes are split right down the middle. So half of us think it was a curse, and half of it think it was people.
Rena-chan, just for reference, what did the test players who played the beta version think? There was a beta version?
What?
That was probably, easily, 18 years ago, but still.
Yeah. There were a lot more players who believed in the people explanation.
See? Right there. Our veteran comrades are cool, collected, and very observant.
But the beta version only finished partway through the story. That's right. Even the people who played the beta might change their minds if they got through to the very end.
What should we do then? This means that the opinions are still split. It's no fun if we don't settle this.
We need there to be an odd number of judges. In other words, we need one more opinion. Supreme Court time.
Ah, perfect timing then. Why don't we ask Keiichi-kun himself? Let's call him. The opinion of the victim himself is very valuable. Since that's decided, it's time for the phone.
Okay.
Hello, Keiichi-kun? It's Rena. Are you busy with work right now?
Yeah, really busy. Just when I thought I'd get a break because the chapter's over, it's already time for the next one. How's Kei-chan? Busy?
Yeah, he's moping.
I can hear you, you know. Must be nice having a wrap-up party. I wanted to go too.
You can come if you get some character art for yourself. Rika, that's a secret. Sorry about that, Keiichi-kun. Anyways, during the current chapter, Keiichi-kun, didn't you die? We were just talking about who the culprit might be.
Basically, we're deadlocked on whether it was people or Ishiro-sama's curse that killed you.
I'm really sorry. Even though you're busy reviewing the script. Keiichi-kun, what do you think it was?
It's obvious, isn't it?
Which?
Isn't it both of them? Targeted by suspicious people from the village, and then cursed by some strange Oyashiro-sama on top of that. It's both humans and a curse. Everybody's just picking on me.
So very, very pitiful. Next time I'll give you a good patting on the head.
Well, okay. This is a lot longer than I thought it'd be. In the end, the opinion's still split, huh?
I'll think this over again. We might have missed something.
Well then, please look forward to the next release, Higurashi When They Cry, Watanagashi.
Okay. That was cute and fun, I guess. A little bit of happy fun time if the chapter was too dark for people. Makes sense. Kind of like a summary of information, I guess, huh? Neato. Achievement unlocked, Onikakushi party. Cool. Alright, well then I think that means we are done with Onikakushi. So, like I said earlier in this episode, I'm going to be jumping into Chapter 2, Watanagashi, on the 8th, and I'm going to have a buffer video uploaded on the 6th. Have not decided what it'll be yet, either Among Us, Jackbox, or Smash Bros. Depends on what I feel like editing, because with some of them I have to, cut things out, so, you know. Either way, that's going to be it for this series, guys. I'll see you all when we do Chapter 2. Otherwise, watch my other series. In the meantime, if you're new here or you haven't been paying attention to any other series I've been playing, which is fair, watch what you want, don't watch what you don't want to watch. I've been doing GTA 5, Persona 4 Golden, and I should be starting Super Mario 64 today. So, yeah. If you liked the series, then be sure to press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye!